So I would like to start this conversation by asking to Ricardo, why was the shelter originally created for?
Well, Antonio, this operating structure was created in the 80s. It was originally to support economic development of the northern region of Mexico. And it was specifically to take advantage of the proximity with the US. The concept of shelter in Mexico works for cost center type of operations. And in this concept or in this operating structure, the foreign parent company operates a manufacturing branch without having a wholly owned entity working under the umbrella of a Mexican third party.
Could you please explain to us the different modalities of the shelter structure and their implications in our country?
There are two modalities, multi-tenant shelter and dedicated shelter. A multi-tenant shelter has multiple companies under a single Mexican entity acting as an umbrella operation to all of the companies. In this format, the entity is already set up. Therefore, this represents the fastest option to start up in Mexico. However, you will share the same entity among all the companies under the umbrella. And dedicated shelters is basically a single Mexican entity devoted exclusively for a particular company. Therefore, a dedicated shelter creates a new entity for each specific project to ensure that the compliance is in full control under a single structure. Both formats have different benefits. It's just very important to do a proper due diligence and identify the most critical items of the project. Target dates, corporate tax strategy, location, etc. This will allow you to define which shelter program supports your project and timelines.
Now I would like to address Carlos and to ask him, what are the compliance implications for both type of shelters?
Thank you, Antonio. Well, in both shelter formats, the Mexican entity belongs to the shelter operator. This reduces risks and reduces liabilities and basically eliminates legal exposure for the manufacturing company abroad. Therefore, a shelter operator must generate complete peace of mind for the customer, as they are ultimately the full responsibles of the Mexican entity's legal compliance of all applicable regulations and rules and laws, everything related to accounting, finance, taxes, human resources, international trade, environmental health and safety main. So the shelter operator, as the Mexican entity's legal owner, must have in their best interest to always be up to date on any changes in the Mexican law or any other topics that may impact the way of doing business in Mexico. This is why a shelter operator also acts as a consultant and as an integral facilitator.
Now I would like to ask Carlos, what are the recent changes of the shelter regulations here in our country, in Mexico?
Thank you, Antonio. So due to recent fiscal reforms in Mexico, some of the fiscal benefits that the shelter model used to have been reduced now or modified. Therefore, it is vital to be completely aware of the changes on taxation rules that may affect your operations. For many years, the shelter model had special fiscal benefits with the Mexican tax authority, which besides its competitiveness, safety, and quickness to get up, made it even more attractive for more foreign manufacturers to choose this model. So in summary, the most recent changes regarding shelter operations in Mexico are divided in two main areas. One is regarding the fiscal rules, and the other one is regarding the terms. So regarding the fiscal rules, there is a non-deductibility of the full benefit package because if you work inside a shelter, between 47 and 53% of the benefit package that you pay to your employees is non-deductible, which creates at the end of the fiscal year a small taxable profit. Also, the new shelter operation will pay taxes as an own independent subsidiary, and that is that it will apply either the anticipated price agreement or the safe harbor ruling in order to pay taxes. And the third point is that by not being a related party, the taxes that are paid in Mexico by the shelter company cannot be accredited abroad. Now, regarding the term, there is currently no limit nor obligation to change structure after 4 years, as it was previously stated, and also that the shelters that started before 2020 will have the previous fiscal and benefits for up to 4 years.
What would you recommend to existing operations of shelter here in Mexico?
Well, one of the most common topics that are ignored when selecting a shelter operator, and how Guillaume explained earlier today, is regarding the exit strategy. It is very important to have a clear exit strategy, which will allow your company to adjust the strategy and the operating structure of the Mexican project to potential changes in the future, either by law or your company's strategies. So, considering the recent changes explained earlier, two suggestions for companies already operating in Mexico would be: one, to analyze your options for business continuity, and the second one, if interested in setting up a standalone operation, a relocation process, or any other alternative identified, it is important to perform a proper due diligence on the scenarios and to plan an exit strategy.
A reform to the fair labor law related to outsourcing companies has been in the agenda for months, and this has generated concern for companies in Mexico. In the following weeks, it's very clear that the law will change. The reform has a clear inclination to eliminate any form of abusive subcontracting that denies rights and benefit to workers. It's clear that those companies who give service to a company that has no employer, this is known as insourcing, are going to disappear. Although we would definitely have to wait for the details of the reform, it is definitely a topic that must be addressed now. Regarding shelter, shelter is not considered an outsourcing company, since this operating structure complies with the characteristics of specialized services. However, there is no company that should not carry out this review. It is recommended for all companies to start a detailed review of the contracts they have with third parties that are providing services to their company to ensure that they comply with the characteristics that the government will request.